Three, two, one.
Boom. Welcome to
Boom.
the Build and Grow with Real Estate show number 200.
200. I mean, I,
Yep.
I feel like I should have like those New Year's Eve glasses on with the 200 on them.
Yes. Yeah. Hey,
I
we
know.
might we
I know.
I might be able to find some of those 2000 that's not 200. We're not to 2000 yet. We're just at
When we get
200.
to
Hey,
2000, we'll get golden ones.
yeah,
But,
hey, speaking of New Year's and everything like that, Josh,
yeah,
how are you doing
I'm
on
great.
New Year's resolutions and what's going on?
Oh, dude, I'm killing it. I'm doing great. Like,
Nice.
yeah. I think it's really important anytime you're setting goals to be realistic. One, stretch yourself, but also
Right.
set yourself up for success. So, I've been planning for, 2022 since about August,
Right.
and getting things lined up so that boom, we go into January and things are falling into place. So it's good. It's good. How about you?
That's
How
awesome.
about you?
Some of my goals I am a little bit behind on. Some of my goals I am doing great and right on track on, and some of
Yeah.
my goals I am very much behind on. So,
Well, did you
but
scratch them off the list? Did
it's
you get
it's
rid of
all
them?
it's early. It's early.
Yeah.
So we've got time to make some corrective action. I will say this. I start off every year with some pretty aggressive health goals and things like that. I'm a casual drinker. I was in my 20s and 30s. I was not a drinker at all. But the second half of my 30s and 40s, I'm a casual drinker,
You're
and so
making
I
up
always
for it.
do. I
Making
always
up for
do.
lost time,
Exactly.
huh?
Well, I'm a casual drinker. So
Right.
I always do dry January.
Hmm.
But what's funny is already so far this week, dry January has been semi-dry January.
Yeah, it happens. I
There's
get it.
been a there's
Listen,
been a
it
meeting or
lasted for
2.
3 days, Judah.
Right.
It lasted 3 days.
Exactly.
You're good.
So that's good, but I'm seeing some really good results there. And I got to tell you, I think that one of the reasons why we do New Year's resolutions is because of our mindset, right? We want to get our mindset right. We want to first and foremost, the whole concept of setting a New Year's resolution is that things can be better than what they are right now.
Sure.
Just think about that in and of itself is pretty revolutionary to how most people day in and day out live their lives. And we as real estate investors decide to make things better. And we decide to always look on the bright side. I run a real estate investors club, it virtually and online. And the one of my pages, somebody got smacked down for some, not following rules and everything like that. And he started to get a little bit salty and said, "Oh, this group is just about protecting the competition." And so I thought, no, like I don't have competition, and I don't say that braggadociously.
Sure.
And so I made a post actually tagging in the group the people who could be considered my two or three biggest competitors,
I
and
saw
and
it.
I think I think that that's one of the things that sets real estate investors apart is we're willing to support our competition, to
Sure.
help our competition, to say, "Hey, you know what? I think you're doing this wrong. I think you'll actually have more success if you do it this way."
Yep.
And it all comes from an abundance mindset. And so if you do nothing else in 2022,
Sure.
if you don't meet your financial goals, your family goals, or um your other goals, set yourself to have an abundance mindset. I've been doing this success, wealth creation, entrepreneurship journey ever since I was, well, I was 5 years old buying penny candy from the penny store from the corner store and selling it off my porch for 2 cents. So,
Yeah.
like, I've always been an entrepreneur, but I've been on this journey for a long time, and I gotta tell you, early early, like, about in the year about 3 years ago, I realized, "Oh, my mindset isn't right on competition. My mindset isn't right on my abundance mentality. My mindset." And so I did nothing for a year but just focus on that. That was my goal. And you know what? It set myself up perfectly because the past 24 months,
Hmm.
I've been able to have relational goals, personal goals, family goals, goals with my kids, goals with the amount of money that I've saved and earned and invested, and what I've taken my company to, what I've done physically. All this stuff, it like came from a foundation of deciding mindset of having a mindset of abundance.
Well, so it's interesting you say that. I used to have a property management company, right?
Mhm.
And I went through growing pains, some significant growing pains. It seemed like every time we had a benchmark, and at first it was 100 units under management, and
Right.
then it was 200, and then it was four, and then 500, and it was like every time we thought we were going to hit that goal, we thought it was going to be life changing, right? What we found along the way is that not all properties are built the same for management. And not all companies are built the same for management. So, it became really important for us to be able to define our ideal client and our ideal type tenant in the right neighborhoods, and not just for what we wanted, but based on what we had available to us. Where, what kind of properties could we easily get to and service maintenance calls? What kind of areas was our staff comfortable working in? What would it take if we were going to upgrade into a different class of property? And so on that abundance mindset, right? There's so much business out there. There's a book called Good to Great that I read a couple years ago, but one of the underlying points of that book is that you want to define as a company, if you really want to be a great company, you have to figure out what it is that you can be the best in the world at. And that description, it might be really, really tiny, but that's the focus of your business. And like, I mean, hard money bankers, if you call me for a 30-year fixed mortgage, I can't help you,
Right.
and it doesn't matter if I have 10,000 phone calls a day. I still can't help those people. I'd rather have people that are looking for a specific product that I provide, that I can look like a rock star. They can get exactly what
In
they
a
want. And it's
geographic location.
right
If
in a
somebody
geographic
calls that
location.
for that exact loan in Poughkeepsie, New York, you're gonna say, "Hey, you know what? Not interested.
Right.
Sorry, can't help you."
Yeah. And what I've found too is that just because I won't do the loan doesn't mean A, the people don't want the loan, and two, and B, like there's nobody out there that will. And so
Right.
I've really developed a really good rapport with a lot of borrowers that end up coming back to me by referring business to other people. They call me for this loan and I say, hey, look, that's just not going to work for me. This guy might be better suited for
And,
this
and
type
so
of
and so
project.
I think that defining, there's so much business out there that you can be focused on something is it, so many people. I see it with realtors all the time. I see it with realtors all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, what type of real estate do you do? Oh, I do investment real estate. I'm a buyer's agent and I list properties. And I also, I do multifamily and, I
Yeah.
dabble in commercial a little bit. Great. So you do everything, therefore you do nothing. Like having an abundance mindset is step one to being able to narrow your focus and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm not looking for.
Yep.
This is who I am. It allows you to define yourself. It also allows you to say, listen, I'm a realtor. I have a very specific clientele that I'm looking for. I can
Yep.
help anybody. But when I don't when somebody wants to, do something that's outside my wheelhouse, I don't get upset if they call a friendly neighborhood realtor of mine and they didn't call me. Now, Josh, if you wanted to list your personal house and you called somebody else, I might be a little bit butthurt about that. I might, I
Sure.
might have a thing or two to say about that. Or maybe, maybe there's a reason why it wasn't me, but I definitely don't get upset if somebody wants to do something that's outside my wheelhouse. So
Well,
having an abundance mindset allows you to focus on what you want to be excellent on, and it allows you to carefree give up everything else. You don't have to worry about the stuff that's outside your narrow focus.
yeah. Well, look, that kind of segues in pretty well to what we're looking into next, and that's 2020 economic outlook, right? You got to start with your own personal economics because what do they say? All real estate's local, but so is economics, right?
Yep.
Like all your economics is microeconomics, unless you're talking about investing, and that's what we're here for. So, yeah, so let's take a look here. Some interesting things going on this week. First and foremost, some minutes were released from the December 14th Federal Reserve meeting. They came out yesterday, and pretty much what we expected to see, but also a little bit of I don't know, a little bit more action in their voices, at least, if not in deeds here coming into the new year.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that for me, discussing monetary policy has long been more interesting to me than discussing politics. It's less partisan, and
Is it?
I think so. I think that you can agree to disagree with somebody who has a different monetary policy view than somebody who has a different political party. And I don't mean you. I'm saying yeah. I think that Hawk I
Yeah.
think that I you know what I mean? I think that hawks get along better with doves and vice versa than Democrats get along with Republicans or vice versa.
Okay. I I don't know.
That's
I
that's
don't know
that
that I
that's what I'm
agree, but
saying.
I think one on one, everybody's the same. Like we all have
Okay.
our opinions, and
I
oh
hey,
man, we
we're
did it
gonna
again.
Josh, I love
Spammed
that our
again from
show is big
YouTube.
enough that we feel that people feel that there is value in spamming the comments. Hey,
Yeah, listen, I
it,
gotta
it all
throw
it
this
all it
out
all
there.
counts.
I'm
It
gonna
all
stream
counts.
this out there. You ready? There we go.
Right. It all counts in the algorithms. So
Or yep,
it's like that old PR joke. Say whatever you want about me, just spell my name right.
that's right.
So
There we go.
here's the thing. The Fed is oftentimes like a bad driver. They're like a 16-year-old driving. They're like gas brake, gas brake, gas brake, gas brake, and they go pretty aggressive back and forth between those two. Yes, I know. My sister called me a status. You don't have to laugh at it. It's only because like my brothers are Attila the Hun type conservatives. You know what I mean? So the fact that I am generally right leaning and generally conservative, I'm the outlier in my family. So here's where the Fed just recently in the fall was printing money and doing quantitative easing. A lot of people don't see this gas break that the Fed has been doing because they haven't been doing it with interest rates. They've been doing it with a lot of
Right.
their other levers. But the Fed has still been very gas break, gas break. And so not only are they letting off of the gas, and not only was the gas pretty aggressive, but they're also talking about applying the brakes and a willingness to apply the brakes pretty aggressively if they have to
Correct.
quantitate through not just quantitative tightening, but also through raising interest rates, which is like I don't know, downshifting and applying the brakes all at the same time.
And running
Like
into
they're
a brick wall,
right,
like
like
all those
they're
all at once. Yeah.
all those at once, which I don't care how hawkish you are.
Nobody wants
I
that.
I still think that they might be a little bit jerky here. And I got to tell you, I remember 2008. We were in before 2008, we were in a pretty loose monetary policy. And there's a lot of people who think that it was in 2007, the Fed raising interest rates the way that they did, and some other times in there that actually helped spark and pop the bubble.
Well, of course it
Maybe
did.
the Fed didn't create the bubble, but the Fed definitely popped the bubble instead of letting the air out. And I'm not saying that I see another bubble here to be popped, but I think that there is potential for jerkiness in the economy moving
So
forward.
wait a minute. I got something. I got a lot to say on this. So first and foremost, right? I think that raising interest rates quickly will have disastrous effects. I mean, really, it's a freight train driving into a building, like
Right.
worst case scenario. Um, However, rates have got to go up. I think that they've got a lot more power by getting rid of this easing and pulling $8 trillion out of the economy over the course of a year or two. That's going to change things, and it changes the bubble too, because when there's less money in the system, it's going to money's going to find a way to a place to go to multiply itself, right? And when there's fewer and fewer assets that are stable and safe investments, the money's going to go to less and less stable investments, right? That it's going to. I
Right.
think what will happen here is with the removal of that $8 trillion from the economy, even if it's half, it's going to give investors safer options in which to invest their money. And I think
Right, and we're
some
seeing
asset
that
classes
already.
will, yeah,
We're seeing
yeah,
that already in the bond market. Bond yields are going up
yeah,
because of the talk of interest rates going up. And even though the Fed controls the overnight rate and the 10-year Treasury bill is not what controls interest rates. It's actually the yield on the mortgage-backed securities that are issued by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They actually issue their own securities, and that's directly what they're tied to. It's a huge pet peeve of mine that when people talk about the 10-year affecting interest rates. But here's the thing: I'm already seeing it. A good friend of mine called me this morning and said, "Hey, Judah, I'm struggling, with this house that I have listed. It's going to be extended, and that means that I'm going to lose my rate lock on the house that I'm looking to buy, and it's going to cost me $1,000 in points or long term interest in what I'm about to lose in just like a 2 week delay here."
well,
So I think that we as real estate investors need to understand that if the Fed raises interest rates, that's like what's good for Amazon stock is good for other tech stocks, right?
yeah,
Like,
sure,
you can read that together, like all the airline stocks kind of go up or down together, all,
absolutely.
and so interest rates, they kind of move together, and the Fed has its finger on the button of one of the biggest interest rates out there.
Right.
So we very easily could see a raising rate environment, and when you see a raising rate environment, that affects how much cash flow properties are going to have. So it affects what people are willing to pay for properties.
That's right. That's right. And if you're retailing properties, people don't buy a dollar amount, they buy a monthly payment.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. All right. So jobs numbers coming out on Friday. That's another big thing that's happened in the first week of the year. December jobs numbers. We got a couple leaks, our insiders at yeah, our insiders in Washington are telling us that private job growth is expected to come in at about 807,000 new jobs, which
Right.
is shocking considering the projections were about 400 to
Yeah, I think
500,000.
there's more leaks this month for that. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always leaks, but I think that the leaks are more credible and stronger because it is as shocking as it is, and they're trying not to shock the market too terribly much when the number comes out.
You think that's it? Okay. I mean, I am less of a government sympathizer. The one thing that gets me about these jobs numbers they were expecting in November about 250,000. I'm sorry, about 500,000 jobs, and the jobs number came out at what, 230 or 250, something
Right.
like that. So essentially half. Now all of a sudden we have these amazing December numbers, and oh, by the way,
We
we
they
have some corrections.
And they always correct. They always go back and they always revise. That's a
Yeah, but
huge revision.
yes, huge
It's
revision.
a huge. I'm agreeing with you, but I'm also tempering what you're saying.
I
I
get
mean,
it.
there's always they always that because on the first Friday of the new month is when the job number comes out.
Yep.
So this month they've had a long time to crunch that data,
Yep.
and they've had a whole week. Sometimes they have a day or two to crunch that data, and the jobs number is still due out. And remember, all these numbers are estimates. And remember, what else is by definition the government or the jobs number? It's a government number.
Right.
So how much do we trust the government at all to begin with about anything? but because we all kind of trust it, and because it's a funny fictitious number that the government gives us every month, there's some there's some consistency, there's some reliability in the unreliability of it. Because
Even when
we're
they change the calculation,
right,
at
even when they
least
change.
seems familiar. My wife is a math teacher, and she has this poster on the wall in her classroom, and it cracks me up every time I see it. And it says 95% of statistics are made up.
Yeah,
Like, right? It's like you can manipulate the numbers either way. And honestly, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, this is a kind of lead into our next topic here. But first and foremost, unemployment 4.2%, lowest since pre-COVID numbers. So unemployment
right.
continues to drop. That's great news. That's great news. Most of the gains that we saw in the job market came in leisure and hospitality. That means people are spending money at restaurants and going out to eat, and they are
And
going on
hotels and
vacation and
spas and things
airlines.
like that. That means that
Exactly.
that's, uh, one of the things that, I will say about a capitalistic, well, Western, type democracy and economy is there's so much excess that we've got money to create
More money.
leisure
And
jobs.
yeah. Yeah.
Not only can we take leisure activities ourselves, but there's so much leisure that we have,
And entire
leisure.
industries surrounding
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's not just
Yeah.
like I'm like, "Hey, Josh, let me come and hang out at a fire pit in your backyard, and, I own a place, down by the bay. Do you wanna come and, hang out at my house?" Like, we say, "No, let's go spend our money on this other thing."
Well,
So
it's
I
what
think
cracks me up
America
too.
is great. I love free enterprise and economics.
Yeah, it's very cool. All right, so some of the hidden numbers in the statistics and some of the things that are a little troubling. Uh, if you have gone out to eat, if you've gone to your pharmacy, if you've gone to any business that's run by humans, you've noticed that the wait times are a little longer, the communication is a little worse, everybody's short staffed. I get a dog for Christmas, right? We went out to find a vet.
I'm sorry.
I know. No, it's a great dog, and he doesn't shed, and he's a great
Mm,
dog. But anyway, that's an aside. We went to find the vet. Had a vet when we had a dog like 15 years ago, and they're not taking new customers, and they don't have our file, and so they refer us to somebody else, and same story. I mean,
right.
it's really interesting that all these small businesses have job openings, and the and we've got this record unemployment. And so this boils down to 3.6 million fewer Americans are at work today than they
Right,
were in February 2020.
right.
And
Yeah,
there's a
so
lot of reasons. Yeah.
even though the unemployment rate is low, we actually have
Mhm.
we have less people in because the unemployment rate, there's 6 unemployment rates. When people talk about the unemployment rate, what they mean
Right.
is what's the percentage of people who are working, who want to be working, and if people don't want to work, they come out of that unemployment ratio number, but they still factor into, the labor force participation rate and other things like that. I can tell 2 really quick stories, Josh.
Please do.
We were just last night. I had to go out for milk, and there was a little old lady who I had to go actually help her, like put a paper towel holder, hang up a paper towel holder in her house,
Hmm.
and then I had to go by the grocery store and pick up milk so my kids could have milk for breakfast. And I was like, oh my goodness, I got to get to Giant before 10 o'clock. Am I
Right.
gonna be able to make it there
Right.
before 10 o'clock? Do you remember before COVID when Giant when grocery stores were open 24 hours? Like, it's just
Yep.
there's all these, like, shrinking margins at the edges of all these things that people have tried to do to make labor force better. Also, I was at Bed Bath& and Beyond, which is before that, which is where I actually bought the paper towel holder that was wall mounted.
Yep.
And like, this whole huge department store had, like, 2 people working. It was crazy. You could just see how much they were shrinking, their labor as much as possible
Well,
to work as bare bones as possible.
I'm wondering. Here's what my question is. Right? Do you have all these people returning to the workforce? So you got all these new jobs. And it seems to me that if you can go and get a job at Walmart greeting people at the door for $15 an hour, you're probably going to make more than that. You're going to have to make more than that to go back to some of these hospitality businesses because they're
Yeah,
hard work. I mean,
yeah.
nobody, you know,
No one wants to
no,
change sheets or roll up urinal
nobody,
mats or,
or work in a
to
restaurant
right.
dealing with the public. And people don't do that because they want to be, they do it because they need to, and they're willing to work hard. And and that's great. So I think the upside with some of these numbers is that maybe there's fewer people back in the workforce, but they're being paid a higher wage. And I think that yeah,
All this is gonna continue to create inflation. All
yeah,
this is gonna this is called wage-based inflation. I've been warning about it for 5 years to anyone who will listen.
yep,
It's how the government creates inflation so that they can continue to just spend money without having to tax. They inflate us out of our debt. And
dude,
we're
you're
already
such a
seeing
conspiracy theorist.
I
Knock it
know.
off. Knock it off.
We're already seeing problems with inflation, and we're also seeing problems with wage-based in the labor market. All that means is we need to but real estate is an intrinsic asset. It
Yep.
has value in and of itself. And I think that we are only going to see values continue to go up. And I think that we are only going to see rents continue to go up. Remember,
Well,
Josh and I, all of this that we've been talking about, I think, could be interpreted as doom and gloom. I see it the exact opposite. And Josh, maybe you
you
disagree
saying a
with me.
balloon? I don't think it is a balloon.
No, no,
This is
no,
where,
doom and gloom. All this could
oh,
be looked at as doom and gloom. I see it as the exact opposite. I
there's no
see
such thing.
troubles, I see rockiness, but I see nothing but
Uh, I think there's no such thing as doom and gloom. And I mean, it just
Josh
is.
Weidman.
No, no,
Josh
watch,
Weidman.
watch. Just
Do you
hear
think
me out.
all of our listeners are listening for the first time on their 200th show and they don't know that you are a resident pessimist?
Well, just because I'm a pessimist doesn't mean I'm doom and gloom. Here's what I'm getting to, right? I'm gonna wrap up a quick conspiracy. We're not gonna be finishing up in 30 minutes. It's gonna be
Uh,
about 35, right?
okay,
So
go.
here's a conspiracy. You have 3.6 million jobs that disappear. 3.6 million people that disappeared from the job market. Okay. Where'd they go? They went to a couple places. A lot of them, they left because they were making $7 an hour and they could go down the street and make 20. That's a big part of the great resignation where you have a lot of low skilled
Right.
workers that changed jobs. They were fired. They went out and got better jobs, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Employers need employees, right?
Yeah, when
And
you see that headline, "The Great Resignation," the unfortunately, what people are what the clickbaiters want you to think is, "Oh, these
they're
people have
out.
left the job market."
Right.
10 million people quit their jobs last month. Well, yeah, you know, 9.9 million of them just went and got a different job.
Right. Right.
It's not that they got rich off quick crypto or they're staying at home, collecting government cheese.
Well, and so the whole government cheats thing, it is part of this, but it's not a big part. Like I do
I
remember
said
at the
staying at home collecting government cheese,
oh cheese. Well, cheats,
as in
cheese,
welfare check.
whatever. I mean, that's I got you. I agree with you. I'm just saying I think that's a less of a percentage of the population than we really think. There's something on this list that isn't here. Let's go through this and then we'll go back. All right. Demand for flexibility. This is a big one. People got used to remote working, and then there's all these job openings, and a lot of them are remote. So they're leaving their employer that now says, "Hey, you got to drive an hour one way to commute back, to our office. Oh yeah, there's a COVID outbreak and people are getting sick, but you still have to come into work." And they're saying, "You know what? I'm going to work in my underwear, in front of my computer at home." Not happening. Childcare and caregiver responsibilities. This is a big one with the closed schools, right? I mean, I'm very thankful that I have flexibility. My wife has flexibility that if we have to work from home, we can work from home. But if our kids are here, we can at least give them one eyeball every once in a while. But a lot of
Right.
people don't have that flexibility. And it's like, well, do I leave my kids alone all by themselves all day? My kindergartner and first grader and, my fifth grader all at home by themselves all day. Or do I, take time off of work to make sure that they're okay. It's a big one. People with health related concerns over COVID. I mean, if you just watch the regular news, you would think that the world's coming to an end. And if you step outside, you're going to die immediately.
Right.
Like there's a lot of fear there. A lot of people in their 50s and 60s said, you know what? I don't want to deal with this crap. They're saying if I get this COVID, I might die. Why would I go back and work? They left early retirement. We're talking like I think the number is like 2.4 million people retired. That is a lot of people that left the workforce that knew how to work. Some people wanted to work for themselves, and then like the government interference. We talked about this, like living off the cheese, whatever. One big factor here that I think is missing is unqualified labor. If you have a floor that needs swept, it's only worth X amount of dollars to sweep that floor, but it still needs to get done. I was watching a guy yesterday. I was watching an interview with one of the commanders of the U.S. forces, and he was talking about how low our force levels are, right? And one of the things he pointed out that 18 to 25-year-olds, only 30% of the population even qualifies to become a member of the armed forces. So we're talking about like 70% of the population can't even pass the test, even though they keep lowering standards and things like that. And I think a lot of the population falls into that category. You have employers that need employees, but they're not hiring people that will not work.
Right.
And so we end up in a situation that we've discussed before, and that's this idea of universal basic income. And I think that what we're going to realize in the coming months and years is that employers are going to look around and say, this sweeping the floor is only worth $7 an hour. I can spend $2 million in development to come up with a way to automate this. And after that $2 million, it will cost me $4 an hour to, have that machine and execute that. And so now they're going to come up with technology to eliminate that job forever, and it will never come back and will be gone. And so we end up in a situation where we have really a growing percentage of the population that is not part of the workforce, is not looking for work because they realize that there's no job for them, that they are not qualified to do anything. And there's no $5 an hour jobs where they can go and get basic, work information, work knowledge when they're 15 years old. So it's one of those things that, man, I think that, this introduction of the universal basic income, and we can talk about what that is. It seems way more feasible in our current environment, where we say, well, look, employers are just going to eliminate that lower strata of employee, and you'll have one manager at Wendy's and a cleaning crew that comes in every night to clean up, and everything else is automated.
That's the old joke is Factors of the Future will have a man and a dog. That joke?
I love it. Go ahead.
The dog is there, or the man is there to feed the dog, and the dog is there to bite the man if he tries to touch any of the machines.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's great.
And really, I think that Britain has a whole bunch of people that live on benefits, they call it. And here in America, with this pandemic, we've seen a whole bunch of people getting stimulus checks and things of that nature. And really,
not just stimulus checks, though. They got free healthcare, or I'm sorry, free housing.
Right. So free housing there for a long time. Fortunately, that train has stopped. They got unemployment and unemployment plus and stimulus. Yeah, I say a whole lot when I say stimulus, and I think that all that free money is why we are now seeing, because whether it was injected into the system by the government directly writing a check, or whether it was injected into the system by somebody not having to pay rent, and then they had that money to spend elsewhere, I think that we're seeing what happens and how clunky it can be, kind of moving to universal basic income.
So if you're not familiar, or if you're watching, you're not familiar with universal basic income, really briefly, it's the idea that the government is going to pay every adult in the country a basic level of subsistence living, a basic amount of money that'll take care of, a basic level of subsistence. The issue, or one of the advocacies for this, is that it gets rid of a lot of the other welfare programs and is not attached to, a bunch of rules. It makes people much more. It seemingly makes people much more accountable for their own life and success and things like that. The problem here is that, one, if you're handing out money to people without any kind of requirements attached to it, you're going to get abuse, and you're going to get people that are going to take that money and go use drugs, and now they don't have money for housing and to take care of their kids and whatever else, right? But that's a small percentage. The small percentage of the population that are going to do that, in my opinion. I mean, this has been tried all over the world, like
And
third
sometimes
world countries to
successfully.
first world. Yeah,
First world country. I mean, I have very good friends who live in New Zealand, and there is, they all get like Social Security. Like everybody gets it. Well, guess what? There's 6 million people in New Zealand.
right,
There's more people in Philadelphia
right,
than there is in New Zealand. Like, it's a very homogeneous
right.
population. It's basically a population that lives in Auckland. It's there's reasons why, with a small population, a non-diverse population, a centrally located population, sometimes these things work. Also, just the deal with New Zealand. Um, no one's trying to invade New Zealand or attack New Zealand or anything else like that, because New Zealand is our buddy. And
Yeah.
so anybody knows, if they pick on New Zealand or Australia in that part of the world, they're actually messing with us.
Well,
And
that's a
and
whole different.
so
Yeah, that's a
but
whole different
so
conversation.
so they don't there is no there aren't New Zealand aircraft carriers.
Well,
You
so
know,
here's
so
here's my question for you, Judah. This is a big one, right? If cost wasn't the issue, would it still be a good thing to do? Like, if it wasn't a question of can we afford it, can't we afford it, would it still be a good thing to do? And that's really the question, I think.
yeah, no, absolutely not.
Well, okay, so watch this.
When all
So
men are
what do you,
paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins. Like, Rudyard Kipling wrote a very interesting poem about what happens. The gods of the copybook headings. We keep on forgetting these lessons and have to learn them over and over again.
okay, so here's my question. What do we do then? So here's this whole idea. It became more and more of a mainstream topic when what's the guy, Buttigieg, I forget his first name.
No, it wasn't
Is
him. It was Yang. It was Frank Yang was
Oh, Yang. Yeah,
popularizing
yeah.
this.
Thank you. Frank Yang was talking about it, and Elon Musk brought it up in conversation.
Not
Um,
Frank Yang.
I
Frank
don't
Yang's
know.
somebody else I
Whatever.
know.
Whatever. Yeah,
Andrew
Yang,
Yang?
whatever his name is. Yeah, he's a politician. He brought it up. He was a presidential hopeful,
Right.
whatever. The bottom line here is this: at some point, you have a segment or a portion of the population, 5, 10%, maybe higher, that is not qualified for any work that's out there.
Yep.
And in theory, I think you and I both would have agreed, that's never going to happen, or couldn't imagine a way where that could happen.
No,
But
I agree
now,
with you. Okay, so what do we do with
yeah,
those 10% of the people? That's what the church is
exactly.
for. That's what you're for. That's what United Way is for. That's what, I mean, I think that I think that we as a society still have a requirement to them. I just think that when it comes from government, it is too clunky, too inefficient, too far removed from the actual people. So
I
I
agree with that. I agree with that. I don't know what the other option is. I mean, you're saying, okay, churches and local municipalities and this and that.
and Josh Weidman and Judah Hoover. I mean, one of the things that I hate about people who advance that gets said about people who advance for small government solutions is, oh, we don't care. No, I deeply care, which is why I want the solution to work, which is why I don't want government to be involved.
Yeah, I just don't know a big
I
enough entity
deeply
to take care
care,
of it. I
which is
mean,
why I want government to be as
yeah, dude,
non-involved as possible.
you know, it's such a double-edged sword because it's like you want to get you want the government that you hope exists, right?
Right,
You want that government to be able to say, you know what, we're going to take care of these people, and it's gonna be a tax on a lot of these tech companies, and everybody's going to pay a little bit more money, but we're going to do it efficiently, and everybody's going to get paid, and it's going to be great.
right.
That's what you want. But what you really get is this big pile of money, and if you don't do what they say, you don't get it.
Correct.
Uh, anyway,
We gotta wrap up, Josh.
that's right. All right, guys, we'll be back here next Thursday. I know this was a little bit dry. Talking about economics is never fun, but look, we're starting off the year talking about money. Can't be all bad.
Amen,
Um,
brother.
that's right. All right, we'll be back here next week. Until then, go out, make some money, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
See everybody.
Take care.